So welcome to the Bee Observer presentation session. This is, as we already said, this is project started by the University of Bremen, and then CorrelAid Bremen and CorrelAid Rhine-Main joined this project. So it's a collaboration of many organizations at the same time. We are more than 7 data scientists who support this project from the data science point of view. However, only 3 of us are going to present this topic today. We are my colleagues Diren from the University of Bremen, Alexandros Medominidis from the European Central Bank and CorrelAid Rhine-Main, and me, Alexander Goncharski from Commerzbank and CorrelAid Rhine-Main as well. This project, as you can see, is supported not only by the CorrelAid and the University of Bremen, but also by the German Federal Ministry of Education and Science. And you probably would like to ask the question now, how did it happen that people from the university and from the financial industry started doing projects related to bees, beehives, beekeeping? So let me say some words about the motivation. In Germany, there are more than 33,000 insect types, and these are more than 70% of all animals in Germany. 40%, almost 40% of the insect types are now dying out or have already died out, but not the European honeybee. The European honeybee is very important for pollination. It's producer of honey, and over the last years, it has increased its number of colonies in Germany. But on the other hand, the cases of colony losses over the winter are also increasing. There are various causes. First of all, environmental influences, parasites, but also, of course, living conditions. Some words about bee colonies. It's a superorganism, honeybee colony. It's a superorganism with a very complex structure, with the division of labor, and the developments in the bee colonies are very hard to observe, and it's almost impossible to observe them in the winter. Therefore, the idea of the project is kind of precision beekeeping. So we install sensors within beehives for continuous monitoring. They can check the weight, temperature, humidity in the beehive, gas concentration, as well as video and audio data. It can also collect video and audio data inside the beehives, and it sends the sensors send this information to the database every 5 to 10 seconds. After we collect the data, the idea is to build. First of all, we build simple models. Now we started building machine learning models that can, in the end, predict bad things happening inside the beehives. So in this presentation, we'd like first to give you some insights into the collaboration between beekeepers and scientists, so-called citizen science project. Then we'll tell you some words about the data and techniques we used in this project. Tomorrow, I can already announce, tomorrow we are going to have a technical session on this project. So today we are not going deep in details, but we nevertheless will try to give you an overview of this project. And now I would like to give the floor to my colleague Diren.
Yeah, thank you. So, as Alex mentioned, the Bee Observer project is a citizen science project. So, yeah, it's based at the University of Bremen, but it wouldn't be possible without many citizens who joined in. So, I want to tell you about citizen science because I think that's very special for this project. So generally, citizen science is science by non-professionals, but there can be different levels of citizen science. So scientists can help to collect data. For example, the girl on the right-hand side at the slide, she's identifying spiders. But citizens can also be thinkers of the research project. For example, they can contribute to the formulation of research questions and really help to analyze the problem. And of course, there can be anything in between. Next slide. And it's relatively new that citizen science has official funding opportunities by the ministry. And our project was one of the first projects who got funded. And now there are actually many projects from different subjects. So if you are interested in citizen science, you could also check out that website and find a project in your area or maybe a project where you can join online. Next slide. Yeah, and in German and English language, we have this metaphor of a scientist working in an ivory tower without any connection to the real world. And I think citizen science can be a great chance to make more relevant research, as when citizens are involved, we maybe can find more relevant and practical research questions. And also, we can make the best use of all the available knowledge as more people are joining in. And yeah, of course, also we have a better opportunity to collect more data from different locations. Yeah, me working as a scientist, I couldn't collect that much data. But of course, there are also challenges. For example, normally you don't have a strict experimental setup. And then, of course, we also don't want that citizens do all the work, but actually it's like real work which they maybe should also pay for. So there's also science about citizen science going on, and yeah, people are trying to find solutions for these challenges. Next slide. Yeah, so how does citizen science work in the Bee Observer project? So it started about 3 years ago, and yeah, at first we just had some meetings between beekeepers and makers, and they yeah, came together and found some hardware prototypes, and yeah, soon people began to write code for the microcontroller or the tiny computers we used at the beehives. And yeah, that all worked really well. And it was nice to see how many people were interested and joining in and giving a big expertise. And then for me, there was this big question: how does citizen science work from the data science perspective? And this is basically where CorrelAid came in.
Thank you very much, Diren. I'm hearing myself now. Yeah, now it's better. Yeah, exactly. The project started, as Diren already mentioned, the project started in 2018 with the first meetings between beekeepers and the university scientists. Also, in 2018, the hardware testing started. The next year, already more than 100 sensor kits were bought and distributed among more than 90 beekeepers across Germany. And also in the end, in October 2019, CorrelAid joins the project. And also in this year, many workshops took place in various German cities, especially for the beekeepers, so that they know how to collect the data so that we can use this data afterwards in our analysis. In 2020, we started data cleaning, the most interesting part in any data science project, and the outlier detection. We also implemented some machine learning techniques, and we have recently submitted a paper, a scientific paper that is going to be published soon. And one of our colleagues, Alexandros, has written his master thesis based on this project. So CorrelAid became really a project where scientists, people from the industry, data scientists, and beekeepers collaborate. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes.
Yeah, great, thank you. Now let's turn to the data part. So we have basically two types of data we work on in this project. First is sensor data. Basically every beehive has sensor kits that contain 6 thermometers, load cell, humidity sensor, and processing unit that sends the data to the influx DB every 5 to 10 seconds. So it's a very high frequent data that can be compared to financial data, for example. The other type of data, another type of data is collected via inspections app. This app is used mainly by the beekeepers. When they visit their beehives, they have to, or they better to say may, submit some information about the conditions, about the condition inside the beehive, and this information is also sent to our database. And now, so as you can see, we have two types of data with different frequencies, and this causes, of course, various problems by data cleaning. And now I'd like to give the floor to Alexander.
Thank you, Alex. Good afternoon, everybody. So I am continuing a bit on with a view on the quality of the data. So from February 2019 until recently, we really got hundreds of millions of observations from, by now, almost 130 beehives. But as you can see in the chart on the right-hand side, even though you have the setup of sensors in every beehive, or in principle, this is not the case that you have equal observations for every variable. Also, okay, 100 millions of observations sounds good, but actually, if you consider the time, you still have gaps in those. So there are times where no data is sent at all. And as you can see in the variation across variables, there must be some problem. So either some of the sensors, some of the beekeepers did not install all the sensors, all the components as instructed, or they just stop transmitting data at some point. This can have various issues. Next slide, please. And here we see it with the example of one beehive. So you have many times no data at all transmitted. This is when the whole column is red. And in some other cases, you have only one specific sensor falling out or a set of sensors. And this incompleteness is also causing problems to the data, because if you want to do multivariate analysis, you would need full observations in all of them. So there's also some issues related to this. So how do you clean? How do you interpolate the data somehow? And the main issues for this incompleteness or this lack of volume can be on the one side, either there's no more electricity, or the Wi-Fi connection drops. But it can also be that some sensors get damaged, or the bees are also active. They put wax somewhere, they build their hive, and this could be close to the sensors, and that could also cause them to overheat or stop transmitting. Next slide, please. And these were the most important issues, but a small other issue is also the quality, like the correctness of the data. To some extent, you have values in the database that make no sense at all, that are beyond the range of what the sensors can show. So I looked at basically the product sheets of the sensors on the internet. To see what ranges are allowed, and then you can clean out those. But there are also other cases where the values are within the allowed sensor range, but still it does not make sense. So here on the right-hand side, you see temperature readings from one example sensor. And this is June, this is summer. And suddenly you have a sensor value dropping to close to 0 and then staying suspiciously at exactly the same level for, I don't know, half an hour, and then going back up. So these are also issues we need to look at. In my master thesis, I did some more mechanical cleaning steps by looking at growth rates. And just cut off after some threshold. But of course, you can also do more advanced outlier detection things, or model the data based on other variables. But this is just to illustrate the issues. Next slide. Or am I giving over already? Yes, this is Diren.
Yes. So of course, one of our big aims is to maybe detect diseases at an early stage. But as we spend a lot of time with data cleaning, we thought a good starting point is local outlier detection. And there are many potential causes of changes in the microclimate within the hive. So, for example, it could be other animals, for example, wasps or mice, especially in the winter, who try to enter the hive. It could be the beekeeper, him or herself, doing an inspection. It could be some special weather condition. It could be changes in the ecosystem, in the habitat of the bee colony, or it could be something affecting the development of the bee colony, for example, by a disease or a parasite like the varroa mite. And so from this many potential causes, we believe that 3 of them are most likely to create local outliers, so outliers which are causing differences for a short period of time, some seconds, but no longer trend which is differing from the normal measurements. So we think most likely local outliers are caused by other animals, by the beekeeper, or by weather conditions. And to detect local outliers, we first model the time series data, and we predict the next sensor measurements. And yeah, we are speaking about it tomorrow in our technical talk. And then we look at the difference between the prediction and the actual value, and use a statistical test to see if this is an extraordinary high difference, and then define this as an outlier. Next slide. Here you can see the result of an analysis. So you see the temperature, the weight, and the humidity in a beehive in November 2019. And we marked the outliers we detected. And yeah, some of the outliers at the 2nd of November can be related to some storm. So there was some wind at a scale of 7. And outliers at the 8th of November can be related to an inspection. So here the beekeeper installed some wires to prevent mice to climb into the hive. So they didn't even open the hive, but yeah, we can still see it in the data. But there are also some other outliers, and yeah, we still need to improve our methods to come up with some prediction what the cause for these outliers could be.
Okay, it's back to me. I also thought of the analytical use case, something that is more hands-on to the beekeepers, and I wanted to see if you can detect swarms. So what is a swarm? This is basically the type of procreation of a bee colony. We discussed a beehive is a superorganism, and you look more at the whole colony together, how they interact with each other, and how they collaborate. And basically, what is happening is either if the bee, the queen bee is getting old, or if the beehive is full and has no more space. So if they gathered a lot of food, or if there has been so much brood, so many new bees that there is no more space, then the bees, the worker bees, will at some point start nurturing and developing new queen bees. And when a new queen bee hatches, then this gives a sign to the old queen bee to leave the hive with around half of the colony. And if this happens, then the old queen bee with the other half of the colony, they go out of the hive and hang on a tree, on a fence somewhere for around maybe a day. And in this time, the beekeeper still has the time to react. After that, the swarm will go further, and also the swarm will have probably issues surviving out in the free without a house. And also even the old hive, the old colony, so the remainder in the old hive with the new queen, they're also weakened. So also from the economic perspective, it's very important for the beekeeper to react quickly. And a swarm event is characterized by quite typical developments, and this we see on the next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a bit small, but I can tell you. So, of course, what is characteristic is on the bottom right panel. This at some point the weight of the colony will drop by between 5 to 8 kilos. So it's basically half the colony is leaving, so the weight is dropping accordingly. But what is happening before is the bees are kind of preparing themselves, like warming up as for sports, to leave the hive. And they're warming up their body temperature. And in this preparation, so they respire, they warm themselves up, and you can see the temperature sensors going up inside the hive, as well as the humidity. So in our data set, so what I did was check first this inspections data, and I found 10 recorded hives. But unfortunately, as we discussed, there's a lot of problems with incomplete data. I think in 2 cases, there were even, the sensors were not recording during the time at all. And in some other cases, you had some of the variables not recording. So what I did, I think we can already go to the next slide. But in principle, what I did was also some dimension reduction. So I modeled the data on, so I labeled the observations that were belonging to the swarm. I did like 5 minutes before the bees start leaving and 5 minutes after. So I manually labeled these instances. And then I looked at only like the maximum temperature from the thermometers. I also smoothed a bit the humidity data. And then I did also add also the time of day. And from this, I did a random forest model, and that worked quite well for the training data set. The problem was also, again, we have only 8 swarms in the data, in the training data set. And so the training data set was also a bit unbalanced, and I also did an upsampling method to correct for this a bit. And this worked quite well. I also tested on unlabeled data, for which we assume that, okay, if nobody stores in the database, in the inspections database, that there was another swarm, then we also assume that probably there was none. And with this random forest model, we also did not see so many strong reactions. So it's also not like the model would send a notification to the beekeeper and there's nothing going on, and then they would be annoyed that we create this technical solution for them. And then one thought was also, okay, given that you always have these issues of missing data, so if you don't want to interpolate the data somehow to fill the values, maybe it would also be better to test how the model would work if you leave certain variables out. And I did this based on also with the structure of what are the combinations of missing variables, and often it was basically the whole component that was creating a problem. So typically, if the humidity data was missing, then also the temperature data from that sensor and the air pressure data from that sensor was also missing. And often, if one of the thermometers was missing, also the others were missing. So I did a bit of testing with combinations of these components, and I also found out that the accuracy is actually not, the overall accuracy is not so bad even if you take less information. There is some differences in the specificity, but also considering that you want to involve beekeepers and make it easier and maybe cheaper to participate, this could also be an option to have less components and also less things to take care about. And here I close with this part.
Thank you very much.
Great.
And, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I think we got a few questions from the audience. Or do you have something to say? I maybe missed
I just wanted to say thanks for your attention, and if you have any questions.
Oh, sorry, I was interrupting you. Yeah. So we have one question from Andre. who asked who developed the hardware parts? How did you provide infrastructure for the database? Maybe Diren can talk about that.
So for the boards we have, or maybe I'm not sure if you can see that, or there's a cable sticking on that. This is one of our boards, and we also had another version which is a bit smaller, and they were both developed by citizens. One, he is retired and just had fun developing it, and the other one is a beekeeper himself, and he created that. And we actually found that the smaller one, it needs a bit less energy, but the bigger one, it's a bit more practical and it's easier to stick the cables into it.
And what's kind of that's also a question I had, like the price of those sensors, and who is paying for that, like the university or the ministry?
So, we tried to keep it as cheap as possible. So you can buy all the parts at the normal DIY, do it yourself shop. But still, for example, the scale is quite expensive. So I think you will come up to 150 euros for all parts. But maybe you can also have it cheaper when we continue with the data analysis and we see, oh, actually we can predict a lot of stuff only using the humidity sensor, for example. And at the moment, the money comes from the ministry, and we basically give the sensors to the beekeepers, expecting them also then to fill out the inspection app. So this is basically the deal, that we swap the sensor for the data. But everything is open source, and everybody can just build it on their own.
Yeah, maybe you can drop the links to the open source material in the description. Yeah. And then there was a longer question from Eike. And Eike, I don't know whether you feel comfortable also coming on the stage, because it seems like you also worked on a private project with bees and wasps, which is quite similar. So if you want, you can also request to join. You might see the blue button at the top right. But if you're not comfortable, it's also okay. I will just read out your question. But if you're also working on this topic, it would be interesting to hear more from your project. You can also just type shortly in the chat if you want to. If you don't want to be live, it's also fine. He just returned. Okay, now we have a request. Should be joining us in a second, hopefully. Yes. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, we can hear you. That's good.
I worked on a similar project for my aunt and cousin. And I worked with the ESP32 and some temperature and humidity sensor and a small camera, where I made an object detection model which detects the varroa mites and bees, wasps and hornets. So I think it's a quite interesting topic you have, and my question was how you did provide the power and Wi-Fi to your sensors.
Yeah. Or first of all, that's really cool. If you manage to detect the varroa mite, I think that's also what we wish. So maybe we can speak later on. Or I'm not sure if your code is open source, but that's really cool and interesting for us. And we are using the same microcontroller actually. So mostly we are using just the main power line, and also yeah, we still need Wi-Fi. But we made some tests with solar panels, and actually one of our citizens, he measured a lot, and he said that in summer it's totally fine to use a car battery and a solar panel, but he had some problems starting from October or November onwards. And then maybe you would have to maybe exchange the battery or something like that. Yeah, and yeah, the microcontroller we are using, it could also work with LoRa or LTE, but we haven't developed that yet.
Thanks.
Cool. Yeah, it's really nice. So you should definitely get in touch. There's like the direct message option in the somewhere in the tool. Yeah. And there was like also the question whether there's an English version of the website or like a paper or something. Can you share the working paper that?
Yeah, the paper that is going to be published is going to be published in English. So when it is published, we can also share it, I think, in CorrelAid channel, Slack channel.
Yeah. Okay, so we will hear about that in the CorrelAid Slack. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I think I have to head off to the stage and let some people in there because it's only 2 minutes. But if there is a last minute question from someone.
Yeah, otherwise, if you have any questions afterwards, you can send us message via Slack channel or, I don't know, in LinkedIn. Yeah.
Here's also this direct message option in the tool directly, so they can also use that. Yeah, but on LinkedIn is, of course, also very good. Yeah. So thank you. That was really interesting. I learned a lot about but maybe, yeah, we have 1 minute left. Like, what's your fun fact about bees that you have taken away from the project? Because I understood like you learned a lot about bees, which was like a side effect. Do you have a fun fact about bees?
Well, I recently asked a lot of friends, for comments to my master thesis, which I just handed in. And from one friend, I wrote a bit of an introduction about bees, what they do and how is the life cycle. And the fact is, the drones, so the males, are only used, for procreating with the queen, and before the winter, they are expelled from the colony. And a friend of mine said, "That's so mean."
That's so tough.
Yes.
Oh no.
Yeah. They need the space.
Okay.
They need the food. The ladies.
I can also tell that now when my friends and my family know that I work on this project, always when it comes to the topic of bees, honey, all questions are addressed to me now. So it's a very interesting topic and very bright topic.
Oh yeah, that's a very valid question to Diren, actually, because I also ask so a lot of friends. I asked a lot of friends, "Oh, do you want to read it? Do you want to give comments?" Or and they say, "No, I just want the honey." Do we get honey?
Yeah, there is some honey as well.
Okay, very good.
Because the University of Bremen, they have some bee hives.
Yeah, we can speak about that.
Yeah, we hope.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I have to head off to the backstage to do the moderation bit there. But thank you again for your participation in the project. Thank you to Diren for the good cooperation over the last 1.5 years. Oh, no, 1 year already. So yeah, really great project. Okay, see you around tomorrow at your technical talk. Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.